The Academy listed deadly traits. The Deathworld girl said, "Stop, that was my childhood." The oryx stopped so hard its restraint ring struck the floor. Its throat spines lay flat, and the heavy animal stared at the open lane as if the doorway itself had warned it away. The mindreader beast had already exposed 3 cheaters in the first 12 minutes. Then it reached the human candidate's aisle and refused to enter. Examiner Dren Voss raised the forward signal. The oryx took 1 step back. Around cognitive verification Bay Kappa, the integrity exam stopped with it. June Calder looked up from her writing plate. The human candidate did not recoil, stand, or reach for anything. She only held her graphite stick above the page and waited for Dren to decide whether the interruption counted against her test. Dren checked the floor grid, clear. He checked the animal's restraint feed, normal. He checked the approach lane, empty. The oryx had crossed that same strip of floor for every other candidate. Dren changed the hand signal and sent the command again. The animal lowered its head. Behind Dren's jaw, his ortho resonance membranes tightened with the faint pressure he usually felt when a sensor gave a bad reading. He stepped sideways, expecting the oryx to track him. Its eyes followed him. Its body stayed aimed at June. Dren moved away from her row. The animal eased forward. He moved back. Its foreclaws spread against the floor. June's pulse band stayed calm. "Is this part of the screening?" she asked. Dren did not answer. He raised the forward signal once more. The oryx backed away. That was where his morning stopped making sense. The creature was not distracted. It was not confused. It was refusing. And it was refusing only the lane that led to the human. If you have ever trusted a tool because it was always right, keep that feeling. Dren had it too. A short while earlier, he had expected the morning to be boring. He had begun by locking the oryx into its screening rig and checking each restraint himself. The creature stood low and broad behind the mesh gate, its forelimbs thick enough to make new candidates nervous, even though the Academy kept it under strict handling rules. Dren checked the gate pins, the floor marks, and the response slate. Green, green, green. The oryx clicked its throat spines before he touched the first latch. Dren paused. That was early. Usually the animal reacted after it entered a candidate's space and began reading patterns. Today it was already alert while the candidates were still filing into the bay. He marked the behavior as pre-screen arousal and moved on. There had been a reason for the extra screening. Exam results from one navigation block showed answer patterns too closely matched to chance away. No candidate had been accused. The Integrity Office had simply been asked to find out whether hidden coordination or prohibited aids were involved. That was what Dren's unit did. Candidates lied. The oryx reacted. Dren verified. Only after physical or digital proof did the college act. When June Calder reached inspection, Dren noticed the battered thing under her arm before he noticed anything unusual about her. She held a scuffed canvas stationery wallet under one arm. The seams had been patched with dark thread. A corner had faded from handling. Compared with the clean Academy gear around it, the thing looked old enough to have survived several owners. Dren tapped one claw against his report slate. Bag. June handed it over. Wallet, she corrected. Dren looked at her. Is that an important legal difference? No, it just sounds less sad. Dren opened the wallet. Inside were graphite sticks, a soft eraser, a plastic sharpener, folded paper tabs, and an old transport stub. He pressed along the seams. The patched edge was thick enough to hide a memory filament, so he passed a detector over it. Nothing. June watched him arrange her supplies on the inspection tray. Can I keep one graphite stick? No. For the written test. You will receive Academy materials. She glanced at the thin stylus beside her station. That thing squeaks. Dren slid the wallet into an evidence sleeve. It will be returned after the screening. June looked at the sleeve, then at him. Today, Dren's membranes did not move. Yes. Good. She sat down. That should have been the end of his interest in her. By appearance, June was one of the least remarkable candidates in the bay. Her pulse band showed no sharp rise. Her shoulders stayed loose. Her eyes moved, but not in the fixed way Dren associated with candidates tracking hidden partners. She had no visible sensory crests, threat glands, defensive plating, or other features common among species that needed special interpretation. Humans, in Dren's experience, were readable. They smiled when pleased. They frowned when annoyed. Their voices changed under strain. Their skin temperature shifted. Their pulse betrayed them with almost rude speed. He brought the candidates to order and explained the process. The oryx is not a judge, he said. Its response begins an inspection. Evidence ends one. The oryx does not invent intent. Candidates do. June's eyes moved from Dren to the animal enclosure. No fear spike. No challenge either. Just attention. Dren took that as a good sign. He should not have. The first pass went exactly as expected. The oryx entered the main lane at Dren's side. Its long forefeet made almost no sound on the pressure floor. It moved past the opening row, then slowed near a cadet whose hands had been folded too neatly since the briefing began. The creature's head turned. Its throat spines lifted. Dren marked the station. The cadet protested before anyone asked a question. That helped. A search found a prohibited answer shard tucked beneath the wrist seal. The same pattern repeated elsewhere. Different candidates, different hiding places, the same rule. The oryx reacted first and ordinary evidence followed. By the time all three alerts had been confirmed, Dren's confidence had hardened into something close to boredom. June, meanwhile, kept watching the clock. Candidate called her. June looked at him. Yes. You seem concerned with the time. I am. His claw touched the slate. Why? Are we still being graded during this? You are concerned about your score. I studied for the score. The integrity screening may affect the schedule. That sounds like a yes. It was not. Then I'm concerned about the time. He had personally supervised 796 oryx screenings. In all of them, candidates had reacted to the animal in familiar ways. Some feared it. Some hated it. Some tried too hard to appear calm. Innocent candidates relaxed after being passed. Guilty candidates tended to watch for the next search. June seemed irritated by lost test time. The animal completed another row. Dren watched the pattern settle in his mind. Deception produced one kind of response. Hostility produced another. Neutrality produced neither. Detection and meaning had always arrived close enough together that Dren had stopped thinking of them as separate problems. The oryx detected. Dren interpreted. Then evidence confirmed. Again and again. It was not magic. It was trained biology backed by procedure. The oryx turned toward her section. Dren almost missed it. The animal had been moving with smooth confidence. Then its pace shortened. One step. Another. Its throat spines lowered. Dren straightened. The access lane ahead was clear. No candidate stood in the path. No object had rolled onto the floor. The air system showed normal flow. The pressure grid was clean. The oryx stopped. June kept writing. Dren gave the forward signal. The animal did not move. He gave it again. Its forelimbs stiffened. Dren felt the first real pull behind his jaw. Forward. It stepped backward. June finally looked up. Her eyes went first to Dren, then to the animal, then to the empty space between them. Did I take its chair? He checked the restraint telemetry, normal. He checked the animal's stress feed, elevated but not chaotic. He checked the floor. Nothing. Candidate Calder remained seated. I am seated. Do not interact with the oryx. I wasn't planning to. Dren's membranes tightened again. The phrase bothered him for no clear reason. Dren lifted the forward command a third time, then stopped himself before giving it. He stepped sideways instead. The oryx's eyes followed him. Its body did not. Dren moved closer to June's row, careful to stay outside the animal's path. The oryx lowered its head further. The response was not aimed at Dren. He took one step away from June. The animal eased. He stepped back toward her. Its foreclaws spread against the floor. June was still seated. She had no weapon. She had no hidden device that inspection had found. She was not staring at the creature. Her pulse band stayed calm. Nothing in Dren's model said the oryx should care that she was there. The oryx cared anyway. Dren looked at the evidence sleeve, holding the scuffed canvas wallet. Then at June. Then at the animal. The easiest explanation was an object. The next easiest was position. After that came scent, light, airflow, handler contamination, learned association, equipment drift, and a list of dull causes Dren knew how to remove one by one. He clung to that list because every item on it had a test. June raised her hand again. Dren stared at it. Yes. Is my test clock paused now? His jaw membranes pulled tight enough to sting. Yes. Thanks. She lowered her hand and looked back at the writing plate. Dren opened a new anomaly file. For the first time that morning, he did not know what category to choose. The oryx remained at the edge of June's lane. It did not advance. It did not threaten. It simply waited for the human to stop being there. He tested the simplest explanation first. Dren sealed the anomaly file, raised a hand to the control gallery, and pointed toward the side door. Candidate Calder, step outside the bay. June set down the academy stylus. Am I in trouble? No. Is the clock still paused? Yes. Then okay. She walked out with the same loose pace she had used when entering. The side door closed behind her. Dren waited for the lock indicator. The oryx's throat spines rose. Its forelimbs loosened. Dren gave the forward signal. The animal crossed the access line without hesitation. It passed June's empty station. Nothing. Dren's membranes eased. Position sent. A small carried contaminant, something ordinary. He signaled the gallery. Bring her back. June stepped through the side door and stopped because Dren had not told her where to stand. The animal stopped too. Its head swung toward her. Its throat spines flattened. Dren felt the pressure behind his jaw return before the oryx even changed direction. Stay there. June stayed. Dren gave the approach signal. The oryx advanced until its path clearly led toward her. Then it slowed. June shifted her weight. The animal stepped back. Dren sent her out again. The oryx relaxed. He brought her back. It stiffened. Her presence switched the response on and off more cleanly than any faulty floor sensor ever had. Dren stared at the live feed. The animal was not reacting to where June had been. It was reacting to wherever she was now. That killed his first explanation. It also made the next one worse. Candidate Calder, You will undergo a secondary property inspection. June looked through the glass at her confiscated canvas wallet. I thought we did that. We did. So this is the deluxe version. Dren escorted her into the inspection alcove. Every permitted item went into separate shielded bins. Identification band, outer layer, hair tie, shoe inserts, academy stylus. June watched. Do you want the socks too? Dren looked down. No. Good, we were approaching a dignity issue. An assistant made a noise that might have been a cough. Dren started with the stationary wallet. The evidence sleeve went into a sealed isolation drawer beyond the bay. The detector passed over it again. No active circuitry. No memory filament. No chemical emitter. No power trace. Dren opened it anyway. Graphite sticks, soft eraser, plastic sharpener, paper tabs, transport stub. He turned the eraser over with one claw. June leaned slightly to see. The eraser has a clean record. Dren put it down. The wallet stayed locked away. The rest of her items passed clean and went to the far storage rack. June returned to the bay carrying nothing but the plain inner uniform the college had issued her. The oryx saw her. Its throat spines collapsed. Dren gave the command. The animal refused. The pressure behind his jaw became a narrow ache. A hidden device would have been comforting. Devices could be confiscated. Signals could be blocked. People were harder. Candidate-specific did not yet mean cognitive, Dren told himself. A scent marker could cling to skin. Human temperature regulation might create a pattern the handlers had never documented. There were still physical causes. He ordered the opposite section opened. The candidates began whispering. Quiet. The room obeyed. Dren pointed at one of the cleared candidates. You sit at Calder's original station. The cadet hesitated. June glanced at the seat. You're fine. Dren's head turned. Do not advise other candidates during an integrity procedure. I was giving up my chair. That is still advice. Understood. The cadet sat. Dren released the oryx along the original approach path. Normal stride. Normal breathing. Normal filament position. The animal passed June's former station without slowing. The cadet held very still. The oryx barely looked at him. Dren felt something colder than uncertainty settle under the ache in his jaw. He had replaced the human with another body, and the supposed danger had disappeared. Not the chair. Not the floor. Not the route. June, waiting across the bay with her hands empty, was the only variable left that mattered. Dren looked at the control gallery. Relocate her. June followed the floor lights to the opposite section. Different wall, different approach lane, different air return. The oryx was taken back to start. Dren waited until its feed settled, then released it. The animal moved past the old station and toward the new section. June was not watching it. She was looking at the ceiling vent. Dren noticed. What are you doing? Waiting. You are looking at the ventilation grid. Yes. Why? It makes a ticking sound. Dren listened. A maintenance vane shifted. Tick. A pause. Tick. That is unrelated. Probably. The oryx rounded into the new lane. It saw June. Stopped. Dren reversed the airflow. The animal was reset. Same result. He changed the lighting balance. Same result. A cleaning cycle scrubbed the unused lane before another pass. Same result. Each test removed a cause. Each clean result should have made the situation simpler. Instead, the explanation kept getting smaller while the problem got larger. June looked toward the gallery. Examiner. What? Does the cafeteria keep broth after assessment block? Dren stared at her. What? The broth, do they keep it warm? I do not know. Okay. Why are you asking me that now? Because my test is paused and lunch is. Dren's jaw membranes pulled so tight he had to swallow. Around him, the handlers had stopped treating the anomaly like an amusing equipment problem. That mattered. They knew the species. They knew curiosity, agitation, defensive refusal, and trained alert. Handler Sarah approached without taking her eyes off the oryx. That is not scent. I know. Not light. I know. Not root memory. I know. Sarah folded her lower hands against her vest. It is maintaining target orientation after every reset. Dren looked at June. She was trying to make the Academy stylus stop squeaking by changing the angle of her wrist. The sound was apparently more important to her than the fact that a trained cognitive predator would not approach her. Dren opened the anomaly file. Handling irregularity no longer fit. He deleted it. Equipment interference had already died. Environmental contamination was dying with it. He selected candidate-specific response. Temporary words were better than dramatic ones. The oryx pressed closer to the rear of its starting closure when June crossed the far section to retrieve a fresh writing plate. Not running. Not threatening. Just creating distance. Dren watched that small choice and felt the ache behind his jaw sharpen. He had spent his career teaching candidates not to confuse an oryx response with proof. Now he faced the opposite problem. The beast had detected the cheaters. Evidence had proven deception. It detected June. But what exactly was the evidence supposed to prove? He had none. That should have made him calmer. It did not. He called for a full sensory isolation cycle. The gallery technician looked down. That will interrupt the assessment block. It is already interrupted. June raised her hand. Dren closed his eyes briefly. Yes, candidate Calder. Does that mean the clock is definitely paused? It has been paused the entire time. Great. She lowered her hand. Sarah's mouth tightened in suppressed amusement. Dren did not share it. Transparent partitions turned opaque. Ventilation separated into independent loops. Audio between sections cut. Floor guidance changed to silent light. Dren placed June beyond a sealed divider. She could no longer see the animal. She could no longer see Dren. She had not been told when the approach would begin. If she was staring, posturing, timing breath, making small gestures, or deliberately intimidating the creature, the barrier would remove it. Dren entered the control gallery. One display showed June sitting alone behind the divider, forearms on her knees, facing a blank wall. Another showed the oryx at its release gate. June scratched at a loose thread on her cuff. The oryx licked one foreclaw. Nothing connected them that Dren could see. He opened the gate. The animal stepped into the lane. June did not move. The oryx advanced. Sarah leaned toward the telemetry. Baseline. Dren kept watching. The animal crossed the first turn. June looked down at her hands. The oryx reached the long passage leading toward the opaque wall. It slowed. Dren's jaw membranes tightened. Sarah looked at him. It cannot see her. I know. The oryx took another step. June remained beyond the sealed wall, unaware of how close it was. The animal stopped. No line of sight. No shared air. No shared sound. The oryx lowered itself until its chest nearly touched the floor. Sarah whispered, "That is not a search refusal." Dren looked at her. "What is it?" She did not answer. On the far feed, June glanced at the blank wall and frowned. She lifted her hand, even though no one stood in the room with her. Dren switched on the intercom. "Candidates, is there something behind this wall?" Every membrane behind Dren's jaw locked at once. "How would you know that?" June looked at the wall again. "I didn't." A pause. "I was going to ask why everyone got quiet." Dren stared at her feed. The bay had been isolated before release. She could not hear the handlers. She could not hear the animal. She could not see either. And the oryx had still stopped before reaching her. Dren looked down at its stress trace. The line was not chaotic. It was steady, consistent, almost deliberate. The animal was not panicking. It had made a decision. Dren reopened the classification field. His claw hovered over the slate. Then the oryx did something none of his remaining explanations had prepared him for. It turned its head away from the wall. Not from a smell. Not from a light. From the human it could not see. Dren ordered June, moved out of the entire verification wing. Not to another lane. Out. The side corridor led into an assessment annex beyond the bay's independent air system. June crossed the threshold carrying nothing. The door sealed behind her. "Distance test," Dren told Sarah. The handler looked at the oryx. "You think it is tracking a field effect?" "I think I am done guessing." He reset the animal and waited until its breathing settled. Between June and the oryx now sat empty lanes, sealed doors, and enough structure to kill any ordinary sensory explanation. Dren opened the enclosure. The oryx stepped out. It ignored the candidate rows, raised its head, and sampled the hall. Its cranial filaments spread. Then it turned toward the corridor June had used. Sarah stopped writing. Dren gave no command. He wanted the animal's choice without pressure from him. The oryx took several steps toward the corridor. Stopped. Its shoulders lowered. The filaments folded flat. "Continue," Dren said. The animal looked at him. He repeated the signal. The oryx backed away. Sarah whispered, "It knows she is not in the bay." Dren said nothing. The creature reached its open enclosure, walked inside by itself, and sat. For the first time in Dren's career, an oryx had decided containment was the safer assignment. He closed the gate. Candidate-specific response still glowed on his anomaly file. He deleted it. June's voice came through the annex intercom. "Am I allowed to sit down?" "Yes." "Thanks." On the camera, she lowered herself onto a bench and tested an abandoned academy stylus on scrap paper. It squeaked. June looked toward the ceiling camera. "This one does it too." Sarah covered her mouth. Dren typed a new classification. Unclassified cognitive avoidance. The term admitted almost nothing. That was why it frightened him. A handling fault could be fixed. A scent could be blocked. An unclassified response meant the animal might be working exactly as designed. Dren summoned specialist Tal Ivan. Tal arrived from neural diagnostics with silver sensory bands along both temples. Dren sent her the test sequence. Her eyes stopped on the final line. It returned to containment voluntarily. "Yes." "Run a neural control." June was moved to the diagnostics suite instead of back toward the oryx. The room held no animal equipment, only a padded chair and a broad sensor arc. She sat. "Do I get my test time back for this?" "Yes," Dren said. "Good." Tal activated the array. June's readings filled the wall. Pulse steady. Stress low. Aggression negligible. Focused hostile intent absent. Dren read the last line twice. Relief came fast. The Oryx had to be misreading her. Then Tal leaned closer to the display. What is that? Beneath the calm surface data, a second pattern had appeared. Not a spike. A spread. Small decision, branches opened and closed faster than the system could label them. Tal expanded the view. There were more. June sat with her hands folded. What are you asking her to do? Dren said. Nothing. Then why is the decision map active? I don't know. Tal switched to raw pattern density. The wall filled with branching paths. They were not one plan, they were options. Short-lived routes appeared, vanished, returned in altered form, then vanished again. Most never reached an action threshold. Tal changed the sensor gain and threshold. The pattern remained. Hardware clean, an assistant said. Tal looked at June. Candidate Calder, think about nothing. June blinked, nothing. Yes. How? Tal paused. Dren almost laughed. Close your eyes, rest. June obeyed. Her breathing slowed. The surface trace became calmer. The branch map did not disappear. Several paths collapsed. Others replaced them. Dren's resonance membranes tightened until the ache reached his throat. June opened one eye. Am I bad at thinking about nothing? Yes, Dren said. Fair. Tal pulled him into the observation alcove. What does the Oryx actually detect? You know the doctrine. I know the summary, I am asking you. Dren looked through the glass at June. Patterns tied to concealed intent, adversarial attention, imminent choice, rehearsed deception. Tal pointed at the branching display. That. Dren said nothing. The Oryx did not hear thoughts as words. It noticed the shape that came before action. Attention narrowed. Options formed. A path was selected. Then something moved. June's mind formed options constantly. But the selection threshold stayed low. Tal folded her arms. This is not attack planning. No. Not deception rehearsal. No. Then your animal may be detecting planning architecture without understanding the motive. Dren's jaw went still. That would mean our interpretation layer is wrong. Incomplete. He disliked the correction because it was harder to dismiss. The Academy had models for deceptive, hostile, frightened minds. Neutrality was supposed to be quiet. June's body rested. Her mind kept opening doors. Can you tell what those branches represent? Dren asked. Not from density. Can the Oryx? Tal looked toward the bay. It may think it can. Dren poured himself a cup of bitter station tea and forgot to drink it. Tal requested June's stationary wallet for a familiar object control. June opened it the moment it arrived. Graphite sticks. Eraser. Sharpener. All present. Thank you. She lined the graphite sticks along the table while Tal prepared another scan. A normal student. A normal wallet. Behind her, the neural display looked like an emergency board. Dren finally lifted the tea. Cold. Tal began the next pass. Candidate Calder, ordinary questions. Answer without trying to impress us. June looked mildly offended. I believe you. That changed the room. Tal started simply. Nearest exit. June pointed without looking. Behind Examiner Voss. Another. Service hatch beside the diagnostic cabinet. Dren turned. The hatch was mostly hidden by the cabinet frame. If the main lights failed. Emergency strip along the left wall. If frightened candidates filled the room. June's gaze moved once. Don't send everyone through the narrow door. Why? Cabinet corner makes a pinch point. Tal wrote. What else? June hesitated. The ceiling sensor over there moves more than the others. An assistant looked up. The mount is certified. Okay. You think it will fall? No. Then why notice it? June shrugged. It moved. Tal's temple bands brightened. What else? The security officer outside favors his right leg. Dren looked through the window. A guard stood in the hall. What does that matter? If people ran, I wouldn't send him downstairs first. Tal stopped writing. June pointed toward the cabinet. That panel opens outward, so don't block it if somebody needs access. Another glance. The side hall stays wider after the turn. Another. The oryx turned slower toward one side. Dren's head snapped toward her. How do you know that? I watched it. When? During the screening. You were taking an examination. Yes. And you tracked its movement. I noticed it. Why? June looked confused by the question. In case it mattered. Dren stared at the neural display. The branches were no longer abstract. One aligned with the main exit. Another with the service hatch. Another with the wide corridor. Another touched the guard's position. Another tracked the oryx enclosure. None crossed into attack. They simply existed. Options waiting for a reason. A maintenance notice appeared on Tal's console. The assistant read it. Then looked up. The ceiling sensor June had mentioned had drifted outside its normal mount tolerance. June was already arranging her graphite sticks again. Dren read the notice twice. She had noticed the movement before the system had decided it mattered. His membranes locked painfully. Tal did not smile. Ask her what she is doing right now. Dren opened the room channel. Candidate called her. June looked up. Are you deliberately making emergency plans? No. Are you planning how to fight anyone here? Her expression shifted to genuine confusion. No. Then what are you doing? June looked around the suite as if the answer might be somewhere in it. I don't know. Try. She rubbed graphite dust from one thumb. I notice what would become useful if something failed. Dren did not move. There it was. Not the explanation, but its shape. Tal placed June's raw neural map beside the oryx response record. Two independent systems. One human mind. The overlap was immediate. The oryx had not reacted to a weapon, a scent, or a trick. It had reacted to a person whose mind built answers before anyone had asked the question. Dren still did not know why. That ignorance became the new problem. Tal opened a restricted request window. Full background authorization. Dren looked at her. For what? Everything she did before Tresson. June heard through the open channel. My what? Tal did not look away from the screen. Training work, field programs, all of it. Dren's membranes went painfully tight. Until that moment, he had been trying to explain the oryx. Now he had to explain June. Tal pressed send. A warning appeared immediately. Background record, partial access only. Dren frowned. Why is it restricted? Tal opened the permissions tree. The answer was not classified. It was worse. The Academy had never imported the full Earthside training categories into its cognitive screening database. Dren stared at the missing fields. Whatever June had learned before arriving at Tresson had never been part of the model judging her here. Tal looked at him. Request the source record. Dren sent it. The system marked the request pending. Across the glass, June picked up the squeaking stylus, tested it once and sighed. Dren watched the pending icon pulse. The Oryx had refused her. The neural suite could see why it was uneasy. And the one record that might explain the difference had never been translated into their categories. For the first time, Dren wondered whether the creature was the only one in the building reading the human correctly. The source record arrived, while Dren was still watching the permission window. Tal opened it before he could ask. The first page looked harmless. Civilian Emergency Response Program, Earth Regional Certification, Search Exercises, Storm Drills, Evacuation Work, Route Planning, Hazard Spotting. June leaned toward the glass. Is that mine? Yes, Dren said. Can I get lunch after this? Tal looked at him. Dren checked the assessment clock, then the pending report, then June. Yes. Great. She sat back and started rubbing graphite dust from the side of her thumb. Tal scrolled. Dren's jaw membranes tightened. The words were ordinary, that was the problem. Nothing in the record described combat or covert training. It described people learning what to notice before a bad situation became worse. Tal stopped at the training history. 6 years of rescue conditioning. Dren read the line once. Then the entries below it. Participants identified exits before simulated crowd panic. They checked weak surfaces before entering damaged structures. They marked fallback routes before weather closed primary access. They learned where tools, lights, doors, and people would matter if normal conditions failed. The exercise did not begin when the emergency alarm sounded. For the humans, the exercise began when they entered the room. Dren looked through the glass. June was not studying the suite now. She was trying to sharpen a graphite stick over the inspection tray without dropping shavings on Tal's equipment. Tal read another section. Repeated contingency scanning becomes automatic with practice. Dren felt the pressure behind his jaw turn sharp. Automatic. He pulled the Oryx cognition model onto the next screen. The species had developed around a different order of events. Directed desire came first. Planning followed. Action came after that. Its reading instinct had been built around minds in which detailed options usually appeared because something wanted to use them. June's pattern reversed the assumption. She entered a room. She noticed. Nothing happened. Tal placed the two models side by side. Dren did not need another lecture. The Oryx had detected the branches correctly. It had assigned the wrong reason to them. That was the break. Not failed detection. Failed meaning. Every clean test from the morning snapped into place. The wallet had never mattered. The response moved because June moved. Sight had failed because she was not signaling the animal. Distance left the same planning shape without the hostile intent its instincts expected. Dren's own doctrine had made the same mistake. He had trusted accurate perception so completely that he had stopped asking whether interpretation could fail. Tal closed the background record. So your animal was right. Dren looked at her. And wrong. Exactly. June raised her hand behind the glass. Dren opened the channel. What? Can I have my wallet back now? He almost said no from habit. Instead, he looked at the evidence sleeve sitting on the side bench. After one final control, June sighed. Of course. Dren returned to cognitive verification Bay Kappa, with Tal beside him. This time he stripped the test down until there was almost nothing left to blame. No stationary wallet. No academy stylus. No outer layer. No hidden divider trick. No task for June, except to sit inside the marked safe area. No command to intimidate the oryx. No reward for making it retreat. Dren explained the boundary to her. Do not approach the animal even if it stops. June nodded. Wasn't planning to. The same words that had bothered him earlier landed differently now. Sarat opened the enclosure. The oryx stepped out. Its throat spines rose. It saw June. They flattened. Dren's dread peaked so cleanly that his membranes seemed to lock against bone. The animal advanced. June remained seated. It moved closer. She did not stare at it. Closer. Her hand stayed loose on her knees. At the stable 3.6-meter refusal boundary, the oryx stopped. No equipment alarm sounded. No handler gave a correction. No hidden object could be blamed. It read the branches. It expected desire. It found none. The oryx lowered its chest to the floor. Its throat spines pressed flat. Then it deliberately turned its sensory structures away from June. Sarat inhaled sharply. Tal said nothing. Dren watched the response designation appear on his slate. The category was reserved for a mind whose available options exceeded the oryx's ability to forecast safely. June looked from the animal to Dren. Did I do something? No. She waited. Dren corrected himself. You notice things. Oh. That was all. No smile of victory, no step toward the animal, no joke about frightening it. June stayed behind the safety line until Sarat closed the enclosure. Only then did she stand. Wallet. Dren handed her the evidence sleeve. She opened it at once and checked the graphite sticks. The eraser went back into its corner, and the old transport stub into the inner pocket. Thanks. Dren had his answer. The mindreader beast had refused because June's peaceful mind kept building tactical options. Its species expected that architecture to come from dangerous intent. It could read her. It simply had no safe category for a person who built options before wanting to use any of them. Dren closed the anomaly file. Then he reopened the cheating case. The 3 confirmed cheaters remained exactly what the evidence had shown them to be. Their disciplinary files went forward under ordinary college rules. June's file did not. Her integrity flag was removed. Dren added a note stating that oryx response alone could not classify high contingency density as hostile or deceptive intent in a human candidate. The note triggered an academy review before June even reached the cafeteria. Dren expected resistance. He got something more difficult. Questions. The review chamber displayed the same raw records he had spent the day trying to explain away. Administrators asked whether humans should simply be exempted from predator-assisted screening. Dren said no. An exemption would turn an interpretation error into a species myth. The oryx detected Calder, he said. That part worked. A board member leaned forward. Then what failed? Dren looked at June's name on the report. Not humanity as an abstract category. June Calder had worried about test time, a squeaking stylus, lunch, and her eraser. Meanwhile, an entire screening system had tried to turn her ordinary habits into a threat model. Our meeting failed. The room went quiet. Dren changed the proposed directive himself. Human candidates would receive a cognitive baseline calibration before an oryx integrity pass. Dense contingency planning without directed hostility would require a separate interpretation step. Physical or digital evidence would still decide guilt. No fear label. No predator label. No special combat status. Just a better test. Tal approved the language. Sarat added a handle or note requiring retreat behavior to be treated as information rather than proof of danger. The board accepted the revision. Dren signed it. His claw paused over the last field. For years, he had taught candidates that a strong tool was trustworthy because it could expose what people hid. His amendment was shorter. Accurate detection did not guarantee accurate meaning. He entered the line into the training record and closed the file. June returned to coursework. She did not become the college's mysterious human prodigy. Her navigation work was strong but not flawless. She missed questions. She asked for corrections. She complained about the academy stylus and eventually started bringing spare graphite sticks in a side pocket. Dren saw her in the corridor after one practical. "How did you score?" "Well enough." "That is not a score." "It is if you're going to lunch." She kept walking. The revised protocol spread without ceremony. New screens gained a baseline field, and June's anomaly file became a training case instead of a warning label. The scuffed canvas wallet returned to her bag and stayed there. The academy wanted an object for instruction anyway. Dren refused to confiscate hers again. So the Xenocognition Archive ordered an empty Earth-made equivalent. It arrived looking disappointingly harmless. Canvas body, cheap zipper, small stitched pockets. An archivist placed it behind transparent shielding because, Dren suspected, institutions could revise doctrine faster than they could stop being institutions. The plate beneath it read, "Human baseline control, inert personal item." Dren stood in front of the case longer than he intended. The wallet contained nothing. That was why it had become useful. Footsteps approached behind him. June stopped beside the case with her original wallet tucked under one arm. She read the plate. Then she looked at the transparent shield. "You put an empty pencil case behind security glass." "Stationary wallet." June turned toward him. Dren kept his face still. Her mouth twitched. "That sounds less sad." She checked the corridor clock. "Broth service." Dren moved aside. June headed toward the cafeteria, graphite stick tucked behind one ear and the worn wallet under her arm. At the crossing ahead, Sarat was guiding the oryx between training rooms inside its open-sided handling lane. The animal reached the junction. It saw June. Its throat spines folded flat. June noticed, stepped to the far side of the corridor, and gave Sarat the clear path without going near the animal. Sarat waited. June passed the junction and lifted one hand in a small wave. The oryx stayed where it was until her footsteps turned toward lunch. It still refused to enter while the human was present.